take your fears, your insecurities, your worries, you roll them all up into a ball, you turn those some bitches sideways and stick them straight up, then candy out!
Pick your goal and stick fucking to it. You wishy-washy motherfuckers. I can't fucking stand you.
I wanted to make sure that out of the 24 hours of the day, that I don't waste one single hour. Those hours were too precious. And so there I just want to tell people, don't give me this thing, I have a difficult time with the time and I don't have time for this and I don't have that. You have time. You make the time.
And now, welcome to the Be Informed, Live Fit podcast, sponsored by FitnessInformant.com.
About how I triple my fan base, net worth, bitch. Can't say there's worse, bitch. Do something, fuck it, I prove something. Don't switch up, should've made your best first, bitch. I'ma rep my shit, put it in stone, that I flex my
It's a totally different year, and by totally different year, I mean it's literally a totally fucking different year. How are you holding up?
You know what? Everything's been pretty steady for me, man. Honestly, I had a little different year than normal. I didn't travel to a lot of events, and you know, following me for years, I've been pretty much booked every weekend, even after retirement. Whether it's my show, military events, other expos. Yeah. You know, there's been nothing this year. I mean, everything halted before the Arnold in March, and we had planned to meet up there. I think was the game plan, and of course, nothing has really escalated since. I've traveled a few weekends, but all my events were canceled as far as the shows that I promote. And now we're looking at, one of the most successful shows that's still happening, but pushed to the end of the year, the Mr. Olympia.
How familiar are you with like the behind the scenes stuff with planning these events? Because I think back to March and I just feel so bad for all the hard work that went into that event. And then, obviously no expo, no fans, and the same stuff even with the Olympia. Like it's been in this sort of flux, and they pushed it. I mean, I know you're ambassador and you're part of the event. Are you involved with any of the stuff behind the scenes, or are you kind of hands off on that part?
You know what? I kind of have an insight on a lot of things. Unfortunately, like for the Arnold, for example, I mean, the rug got totally pulled out last minute with them. Everyone was there. Every vendor, including, myself, had everything already shipped there. Mm-hmm. So they decided, I think, a day or two before that, hey, we're going to cancel this event. And unfortunately, like, we were all boarding a plane to head there, and that got canceled. But as far as the Olympia, like, we kind of knew where the direction was heading. I mean, I was the face last year. So I knew kind of like the insight thing. I kind of know a little things with production on the production side that are planned for this 2020 event. And I think now I've worked with Dan for years. I mean, I remember when Dan was just kind of managing people, and then of course working through the Digital Muscle, the Pro Bodybuilding Weekly, all that stuff. We've kind of worked closely together for years, and he has a good insight on a lot of things, and I like what he does, and he's trying to mix it up a little bit and try to create a better event than the year past, and I feel that this year's event will top last year's.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot going on this year too. I mean, your buddy Dexter, the Cowboy rides away this year. I don't know if I don't want to feel bad for Dexter, but I wish there were better circumstances around his last show. I just wish it would have been normal for him to kind of go out the way he wanted to go out. Have you had conversations with him at all?
Yeah, a little bit. We've kind of had some chatter back and forth, but I truly don't think Dexter will retire this year. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah.
I know they're using this as his, hey, this is my last one, but I think he's going to come back and compete again, quite honestly.
To the Olympia again, you think?
I think so. I mean, I think he's going to finish in the top field, and I mean, why would you leave? Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's still a career, it's still. I mean, he kind of missed. I feel like this year is like you got to kind of like you got to cross this year off and say, okay, well, let's just skip to 21, right? Yeah. So I think that's really how people are going to look at it, and without the huge fan support. Because we know a lot of people will not attend just because they can't, especially international people, because of the quarantine and whatever. I think that he'll make that decision, but I'm not going to speak for him, but I have a feeling that this isn't the last we'll see him at the Mr. Olympia.
Well, if he's proven anything, it's that he doesn't age. So, I mean, he can just keep doing this forever, it seems like at this point.
I think he had also said he wanted to do Dwayne Johnson's show, right? The Rock.
Icon Classic, I guess is what they're calling it.
Yeah. So I think, because of that postponement till 21, I think that show will take place. I think we'll see him in another competitive season. Why he's there, he's going to say, why not make the sweep and come back and try to grab the title again? And who knows who's going to be there at that point? Or, what if he won this year? I mean, don't count that out. I mean, every time you try to count Dexter out, he's right there knocking at the door.
Yeah, I mean, even at the Arnold, he finished second. Arguably, could have won the show. I think a lot of us thought, between him and Bona, it was edge and edge. So
yeah,
it was interesting. Do you think, being a professional bodybuilder, doing this before, the extra 3 months that the cutters have gotten from September to December, does it benefit anybody, or is it still an even playing field because everybody got the same amount of time?
It's going to benefit the guys that competed this season prior. It's going to give them a little longer time. But, remember, a lot of them started kind of training for it prior to the announcement of, hey, we're going to move the event. So I think in their mind, it's really hard to switch off, okay, for a September event, now we're going to push to December. So I think a lot of guys mentally were already there. But it's going to give someone like, definitely like Dexter, who competed earlier in the season, a better advantage or whatnot.
What about Phil? He hasn't competed in 2 years or whatever it is, right? So, I mean, he gets some extra time to chisel himself up for December on stage?
He's going to be ready no matter what,
Yeah, well,
I think.
You're not wrong.
Him sitting out 2 years, I mean, you saw, I mean, he was pretty much in shape all the time. You never want to count him out either because he's probably the most genetically blessed Mr. Olympia we've ever seen, including Ronnie Coleman. I think he's coming back with a vengeance, and I think he definitely should be the guy we have our eyes on to win the title back.
Well, I think a lot of people agree if Phil is Phil, he wins. And I mean, I've heard people say he wins in a landslide, like it's not even close. I mean, he, like you said, genetically gifted, ridiculous. And I mean, put yourself in somebody like Brandon Curry's shoes. You're coming in, you're the defending champion. Nobody seems to be talking about you. Literally every conversation I've had with pro bodybuilders, no one mentioned. I mean, they mentioned him as a good advocate for the sport, great person, but in terms of his chance to compete for a title against the best of the best, I don't feel like he gets the respect. So I mean, from your standpoint, like, how would you take it?
Inside, honestly, Ryan, I don't know if I mean, people are looking at him. He is the defending, right? But there's also guys that kind of get a little more notoriety because they're kind of the big Ramis who, if he hits it right, people are. I mean, the most disrespected guy is probably Bonnick, who was second last year, and Hattie Chupon, who they're not sure if he can even come. I mean, Flex Lewis kind of overtook a lot of everyone's publicity, including Phil Heath's, because he decided to move up, and of course that's kind of changed since he's exited the contest. I think Brandon, he's definitely a contender. He's definitely, I would think, be in the top 2 or 3. Can he win it? Absolutely. Can Bonnick win it? Yes. Can Dexter win it? Yes. Can Phil Heath win it? Yes. I mean, there's just too many guys. Hadi Chupin, I mean, he was a people's champ last year. Yeah. There's so many guys that really, it's very, it's going to depend on who shows up like what. I mean, Phil Heath, if he shows up like we expect, if he shows up like 11, like when I lost to him, he wins hands down. There's no one's going to beat that physique, but there's a big question mark. What's his midsection going to look like that held him back against the Sean Rodens? I mean, even if Sean Roden was there, I mean, unfortunately he's not in the show, but like he could be a real contender for this too. So I think Brandon gets the respect but the problem is it's just, he hasn't had a year to really publicize himself as Mr. Olympia. We've seen nothing other than social media. And if you don't follow him on social, you've seen nothing because you go to events and being at these big expos, he's been absent from it. I mean, he did go to the Arnold. He was present there, I believe. Right. So, but we've kind of lost that whole year, like I said, of publicity.
How much, from like a business perspective standpoint, like the Olympia has an obligation to sell tickets and to get to that. So you're obviously going to tout the Flex Lewis is going up. You're going to tout your Dexter Jackson's last year, quote unquote. You're going to tout Phil Heath returning. But how much responsibility falls, do you think, on the Olympia committee to tout the defending champion is going to be there and to give him a little bit of that rub because he earned it?
I think the Olympia can always do more. I'll be honest. I mean, I think the Olympia this year, it's been such a question mark. And, you know, we really, I always said there should be some sort of a hype train, like a hype tour, get the guys together, get some media coverage. And they couldn't do that this year. So I'm not going to sit there and point fingers like this should have been done or that. But realistically, you know, you should have your top 5 guys, you know, at least do some sort of publicity tour or even social. There should be these guys getting on some sort of a social platform together. Hey, this is how my training's going. I mean, I would imagine getting these 5 guys on a Zoom call, which is not impossible, right? No. I mean, think how viral that would be right now with 4 weeks out from the show. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel? What's your prediction?
Right.
Okay.
What did you guys do? I mean, did you guys, when you were competing, I mean, you guys didn't necessarily have a tour. You guys had DVDs and things of that nature to publicize yourself. You didn't have the platforms we have today. I mean, did the Olympia back then have anything set up for you guys to help?
No, we usually went and Ronnie and I guest posed together pretty much all the last 3 months prior to when we went locked down for preparation. But remember, Flex Magazine did articles. They'd fly out to us. We would do our shoots prior to the competition or leading up. Like I would start my prep at 12 weeks. They'd come shoot me in Las Vegas, for the USA weekend. They'd shoot, okay, here's Jay at 290 pounds starting his preparation. This is what I'm doing. They'd do the same thing. They'd fly to Texas and they'd sit with Ronnie. They'd have him train and squatting, 700 pounds in the gym, showcasing the lifestyle. And that would be featured in the book. So you'd get that hype. Unfortunately, the books aren't like social media where it's minute to minute. Mm-hmm. But there's so much more advantage you can take. But we've seen nothing other than what the athletes want to post. I mean, we haven't seen any Phil Heath necessarily. No. I mean, you have the news coverage of like the media people, Nick's Power and Strength and Power doing stuff and RX Muscles. And I mean, I'm trying to put people on JTV. We've shot more girls than guys lately, but we have so many outlets that we don't really take advantage of because we don't have access to the guys, know?
I agree. I mean, I think you and I have talked about it in the past too, about like injecting some personality into the sport. I mean, you and Ronnie did it with your DVDs. Some of the physique guys do it. They use their platform for it, but the main event, the bigger guys seem to, and we've had a conversation about like covering up, in the gym. You never cover up, right? And I think, I was talking to, I was talking to somebody the other day too about, he's like, well, I always cover up. I know Jay does. And it's like, why do you still encourage people to uncover and to show?
I think you're your best advertisement, right? So especially these guys that are looking amazing right now. I give Guy Cisternino a lot of, I bust his chops because, he's like in a snowsuit training and he's like, I just like training like that. I said, man, but you look so good. He's sending me pictures how he looks. He looks amazing at, 5 weeks. And, I would showcase that. I mean, I used to train tank top and shorts. Some people just aren't comfortable with it. So, I mean, each their own. I think it's great publicity, especially for your media. And like you said, the physique guys and the classic guys, they're all showcasing a little more than the open guys. Although we saw some pictures of Rolly. I've seen some floating around how he looks in Kuwait. We saw Brandon Curry was doing an amazing job promoting himself. Mm-hmm. He always looks amazing, but it's those fine-tuned dial down week before that's really going to – every guy in those top 10 is just a beast, right? Right. Or even further, anyone that's qualified is a beast. Regan Grimes is an amazing example of showcasing, hey, this is what I got going on, mm-hmm. and not shy to show it. He's got it down. If anyone should follow people's social media, Regan Grimes is someone people should definitely follow as a model to what they need to do.
What do you think about his future in the sport? I know he just won in Romania, and I texted him too, and I said, you look great. I mean, and I look at guys like Nick Walker, for instance, who just won his pro card through Matt Jansen, just some of the younger guys in the sport. Future bright, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, Regan's it's time with him. Walker, the same thing. Walker, it should be, that he should be like the bodybuilder of the year, to be honest. I mean, what he achieved to be able to place in the top 5 in a pro show after earning a pro card. I don't know if anyone's really ever done that. Mm-hmm. And he did it right too. I was counting, talking about the pro divisions, but Walker was a guy that showcased all the way up. He wasn't afraid to show the goods. He had a lot of hype going into that North Americans. He won it with pretty convincing fashion. I mean, look, they had him touted to win that Chicago Pro. He unfortunately did not, but and he's still posting. I mean, he's still out there putting the content out.
Yeah.
And that's why I give him and Regan those two guys are like really have highlighted, on the men's bodybuilding side, really something special this year.
Yeah, I agree, and they're good people. Like, they're nice, good people too. And I spoke to both of them. I speak to Nick quite a bit now too. But I think it also, like in Nick's case, it helps with his coach Matt. Matt's posting stuff about him as well, so we get a lot of views on it. Which, I mean, some of the other guys their coaches don't, or maybe they're instructed not to. I'm not sure, but we just don't see a lot of them. He's got
Walker's got a great team around Dom and Matt. All the Revive and the Raw Nutrition. Like, they got it going on. They got a good hold on what's happening, and I think they're a very positive influence on him, and he's a very positive guy. That's what I love about him. Like, I've known Walker since before he became anything, right? He used to come see me at expos with his parents.
Yeah.
And he always had the size, but he just had to get that fine tuning down to be as great as he is today. But he's very humble. He's very driven, and he knows exactly his confidence is high, but without arrogance. And that's really, he's surrounded by a lot of positive people between his parents and, his sponsors. And I'm sure they're like family to him now. I mean, him living in Florida, he put himself in a better atmosphere to be great. Same thing I did. I moved out of my atmosphere in Massachusetts to be in California to be better. And I see his career being endless at that rate because he's willing to make those changes.
Yeah, you mentioned the team around him. I know those guys too. Great people for sure.
This is your personal invitation to the Redcon 1 Alpha Team, our new exclusive subscription program. Enjoy members-only access to the Alpha Team apparel collection, priority customer service privileges, early shopping on major deals, exclusive flavor selections, and a whole lot more. This is your opportunity to become a Redcon 1 VIP. There's limited spots available, so go to redcon1.com and sign up today.
talk about. I don't know your familiarity with Jake Wood. I'm assuming you probably are fairly familiar. But even like in a year of COVID and crazy year, like I feel like that team has done a really good job of hyping up the show. In terms of some of the changes that they made. This is Jake's first year at the helm of having the Olympia, and this is what he's dealing with. But from what you know about Jake and him and Dan working close together, how do you foresee like the future of the Olympia?
Listen, Jake's been a supporter. I see him as a huge position because he was like title sponsor for the last couple of years. I mean, Wings of Strength last year was the main sponsor along with Trifecta. So his position was pretty high. He's done the Wings of Strength. He's worked close with Tim Gardner down in Florida. He's worked close with Dan. He's doing a lot of media, of course, picking up the whole AMI, the sale of the Olympia and Flex and Muscle and Fitness and all that. He's just got a passion for bodybuilding. I mean, he brought women's bodybuilding back. He said, no matter what, I'm not canceling this show. That was directly, Dan relayed that to me from the very beginning. He says, no matter what, we're not canceling this. Jake refuses to cancel it. That just shows the passion because he's willing to go into his pockets to finance this event to make sure that everyone can compete. And everyone should be thankful. But we need to remember where this whole thing, it's still called Joe Weider's Mr. Olympia weekend, right? I can tell you, coming from a background, Joe Weider was a huge mentor for me. He was the reason I became successful in bodybuilding. He created this event, and I'm going to bring you back a little bit just in case, because you're a little newer to this whole business. Joe Weider had contracts back in the day that he paid athletes, and in that contract, because I was one of them, our whole goal of the year was to be in that Mr. Olympia. That was like his Super Bowl. So you had to try to qualify. So he said, I don't care how many times you compete, your whole goal of this contract is to be in that Olympia and compete against the best guys. And if you didn't, it was only year-to-year contracts. You were a little concerned about, okay, am I going to get re-signed? Now, this is Jake's. I see the passion in Jake really with this show. Like, he's kind of like carried the Joe Weider tradition. He's refusing to give this event up no matter what the circumstance. And we know the circumstance this year is, I mean, it's the biggest obstacle we probably ever faced in history, right? So his passion is great. I just would love to see, this Olympia carry that Joe Weider tradition and really like finance the guys to, okay, this is the ultimate show to compete in. There should be no other mindset of like there's any other contest to get into other than this. I mean, this is the granddaddy of all shows, right? So, just very passionate guy. He refuses, like I said, to give up on the show, and he's got, Dan there right at the realm of the whole thing, and of course Tamer and Tim Gardner running, what he tried with an expo as much as possible, but and a huge staff. I mean, he's got a huge staff that, remember, the day this event ends, the next year starts planning, right? And that has not halted.
Yeah, no, it's good. You're right. I see the passion in both, and I've had conversations with Dan almost weekly too, and positive mindset too. It does not seem like they're discouraged or even in the world that's uncertain. Like they full fledged ahead. This show is happening 100%. I never heard anything other than that, which is great. And you mentioned that Jake brought back women's bodybuilding. We talked the last time you were on about how the women weren't necessarily getting as much recognition as the men. Jake changed that, or at least he's trying to. The Mrs. Olympia is back this year, which is pretty cool because, I mean, I never got to see it live, so that's great. For the women watching and listening, like, can you explain the impact he's actually had on the female side of things in bodybuilding?
Listen, there's no much more respect from the female side of anyone to Jake Wood. I mean, Linda Murray works close with him, and as we know, she's one of the greatest, if not the greatest, female, arguably. I mean, Iris Kyle is back competing. I mean, she said she wasn't going to come back, and you just have so many great women that are in the show and so supportive of this guy. And the Wings of Strength is just, I mean, it's become such a big brand. And they've given away the crazy prize money to these women. I mean, Hella won the car and I think $100,000 last year at the Arizona event, which I think is supposed to be happening, I think, coming up.
Sure.
Prior to the Miss Olympia.
It's great. It is great. I mean, like, if we were being transparent, will Will the women ever have a stage as big as the men? Arguably, probably not, because like at the end of the day, men are the ones, and this is not being disrespectful. Like a lot of times, like they're the main event, and they're the personalities, and they're what the show's built around. But it's good to see them taking steps in the right direction to bring the women up to more of an even playing field as the men, and I enjoy that because these women, as you know, work so hard to get to this point, just as hard as the men do, and they're just built differently, right? Like men are the mastodons, they're the beasts, they're the monsters, but that's nothing should be taken away from what the women are doing.
Yeah, and they're still going to have the main stage. It's just that, if you said it's always arguable between classic bodybuilding and men's physique, what's going to bring more people in to sell the event? Let's be real. I mean, it's still based, the Mr. Olympia is where it all started. Mm-hmm. There was men's and women's. Of course, the branch of, different divisions have taken place now with, the added divisions, even wellness coming up. I don't think this year they're doing wellness, right. But it's all going to have a place for the main stage eventually, and Jake's going to make sure that happens, I'm sure. But we've seen more publicity this year for women's bodybuilding than we've seen in gosh knows how long. I mean, since my early days,
Yeah.
Which I think is great. I mean, it's equal distribution, but I'm going to be honest. I mean, the men's side is still what sells the show. That's what we're discussing today. So no disrespect to the other divisions. I mean, I came from the men's bodybuilding side. That's why obviously we're having that discussion. But the whole production value is, every athlete has a place in this event's success.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And everybody's going to be able to access it. Obviously, they're going to stream the show just like the Arnold was streamed. I watched it. The quality was great. The coverage was good. I know they have the right people behind the mics. Could you imagine if you had like live streaming back when you and Ronnie were on stage, how things would be different?
We actually had pay-per-view.
Correct.
But, that it was kind of limited, but a lot of people stayed home and watched it then. I mean, it was at Mandalay Bay, and, it was pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking at a poster right now that was on Times Square sitting in my office, and, to have that advertised as a pay-per-view event, and Triple H was emceeing the show and all that, it's pretty wild. But I felt that bodybuilding fell back a little bit, and I would say, AMI kind of tried to, change the event, and hopefully Jake's going to bring that back. And this live stream, I know they're spending a lot of money to create a very quality live stream, and I think this is going to set the standard for years. We'll continue to see these live streams because it's so successful for the family and friends that can't attend these events. I think it's absolutely necessary. And, to do a quality live stream, not just sell it off to someone to do it on whatever channel.
Right.
I think it's going to be great to do. It's kind of like considered a pay-per-view event, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, because the internet seems like it's been around forever, live streaming is still fairly new. I think the first year they did one was when Amazon was the title sponsor. And I think Amazon actually paid for and did a lot of the live stream stuff, but the quality is leaps and bounds better. Like if you watch the Arnold live stream, it was great. I mean, it almost felt like you were there, which was cool. And I fully expect this one to be top notch as well.
Yeah, it's not cheap, that's for sure.
No, it's definitely not. One thing too, like you mentioned, like the show that you're in was at Mandalay Bay. I think that what Dan and Jake has shown is that they're going to make the best decision possible for the event. And that was like thinking about where they want the event to be, and that's it. And I've always said, like, it'd be cool is like if they had a traveling Olympia, kind of like the Super Bowl goes to different cities every year. And if you could make it a fan experience, it would be great. But it's just their willingness to change, I think, is what is going to be. It's super exciting for the sport.
I think that was the first discussion is, taking it out of the Orleans and bringing it to a larger venue and with a little more publicity. I don't know, because of contracts that was, limited to when they could do that.
Sure.
But they were able to do that, and I think it's heading in the right direction for sure.
Do you think a traveling Olympia would work? Like a different city?
I think it would. It's just it's a logistic nightmare for the staff, right? And you're going to have your places that you may think are better, but they might not. The problem is Vegas. It's so affordable. The tickets are affordable. The hotels are affordable. When you travel to, like, let's say they had it in Chicago or they had it in Helsinki, Finland. Mm-hmm. You got to remember the tickets to fly there and staying in certain hotels. It's very limited, right? So you have to figure out, okay, what's the best demographic to have, where the show is going to be located.
Right.
New York, if you remember, it was at Madison Square Garden when Ronnie Coleman won his first. But can you imagine? I mean, the price is to have a show there. Block off a little bit of that. It needs to be around these boxing matches or UFC events that they're hosting there. I just don't know how they would plan that, and I think that's why they've decided Vegas seems to be the hotbed for it.
That's why I find the Rock show just intriguing that they're incorporating other things into it, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to say the Olympia dropped the ball on that, but like a UFC fight during the weekend of the event. I mean, things that are very Vegas-like. You know, when you think of UFC, you still think of Vegas. It would have been cool had they said, like, let's make this an overall fan experience. Let's have the show be the main event, but let's have some prelim fights or just something like that to incorporate, to do more. And that's, I think, another reason why I like the Arnold so much is that there's just so much going on. Has there ever, to your knowledge, ever been discussion about, is there other things, other forms of entertainment we can bring into this weekend to make it more about the fans?
Yeah, they're always looking for new involvement. I think that's why they kind of, even this year, they brought in, Shaquille O'Neal to get more eyes on the event. He's kind of like the face of kind of the position I was last year, right? Mainstream sponsors are always hard to come by. And this year's, this has been the toughest year of all because, a lot of people's budgets are kind of tapped out with what we had to deal with. But I think, there's always that mindset, let's do it better. But you remember, it just went into someone else's reins in the last year. And I'm not going to sit there and talk negatively on how the Olympia was run for the past 10 years. But I think the budget was very limited. That's what the issue was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and even like the production value of things that Jake and Dan are putting together, it seems more like, it just seems like the stage is bigger. Like, figuratively, literally, it just seems like a bigger stage. And I think the guys could also help with that again, too, by, kind of our conversation earlier, like showcasing more personality, inject some character. And I had this conversation earlier. It's like when you and Ronnie injected some personality into what you're doing, not only did it bring more eyes to the sport, but what I think it did is made you memorable post-bodybuilding career, too. Like, yes, you won 4 Olympias, but people still remember those classic pose downs between you and Ronnie, and you carried that with you, and the DVDs that you guys had to, obviously you can build on that in your business post-bodybuilding.
Yes, Battle for the Olympia. I don't know if you remember those DVDs. So we would have, between like 6 weeks down, Mitsuru Okabe would travel to each person qualified for the event that was able to be present. Some of the overseas guys he had to get after the show and compiled into the DVD. That would allow people to learn people's personalities. So it would be, they go to the gym, maybe they'd say a few words, maybe he'd show up at their house and he'd get to see, their dogs or, what kind of cars they drove or, what kind of food they were eating. That really helped build a lot of personality in the business. And I think that's what if I was to make any changes, I would definitely do some sort of a traveling battle for the Olympia leading up to the event. And every division should have it, because it's not just it's not just a man show. It's physique, it's classic, it's all those things. The women's side, they really, on the Digital Muscle channel, since that's kind of like the Olympia channel, they could literally post these videos up there and show the battle. These are the people coming for it. And it could be just straight, instead of a DVD being launched months after the contest is over. And then the next year, the people's personalities are built up. You can build the show and say, gather interest and say, man, I want to go see this person compete. This guy seems feisty, or this woman seems like, she's more driven than this one, or, there's a lot of drama in the men's physique division, right?
Yeah, for sure.
These guys, I mean, they should have a boxing match after this event is over with some of these guys that are going at it. But I just think it would create more buzz. I mean, that's what people want to see. I mean, I just don't think there's a ton of hype. If you leave it up to the individual to do it themselves, you're going to have a few standout people, like I mentioned, but you're going to lack in other places.
Yeah, I think it's a good business decision on people in general to just show character and show personality, because to be memorable, not only for what you leave on the stage, but off the stage too, I think. And that's, I was talking to Terrence Ruffin a couple weeks ago, and it's like everybody remembers his routine from the Arnold. Like, everybody's like his posing, and it is awesome. Mm-hmm. But it seems like nobody knows who anything beyond that about him, unless you're like hardcore in his inner circle. So it's like, having him on the podcast was an opportunity for him to open up and talk a little bit more about himself, and that was good. I think people like him, it's like you're one of the best posers in the world in terms of your routine and your fluidity and your motions, but you need to be known more than just that.
Yeah, and you make a good point, because I don't know much about him. I've met him on occasion, but I know he's a great poser, and I know he's like a front runner. He's made a lot of improvements. That's about all I know, and I'm inside the business. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have every platform possible: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. You name it, it's here. It's instantaneous. Think about like just you're building a business now. I mean, you can't compete your entire life. Father Time calls at some point, unless you're Dexter Jackson, and you have to walk off the stage. What are you going to do then? Like, I mean, and you're a great example of that. Like you were very smart with your investments though too. We talked, I think, last time you won a Hummer on one of your shows. I think you sold it and invested in real estate, and now you have Cutler Nutrition, which is absolutely phenomenal. But you set yourself up for success during your runs at these Olympias by not only being great, but being somebody people remembered, not just for your trophies, but you had a lot of memorable stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest fear I ever had, honestly, was, I was told by, a upper level person, like, listen, when you retire, your phone's never going to ring again. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, is that true? So I made sure that I had, all my other stuff that I looked at, and, I took pretty much what I made in bodybuilding and turned it into other things. But I was like, that was a challenge to me, right? So the stage became a place where I couldn't really challenge guys anymore. I got old, unfortunately. And then I said, okay, can I be like still a big face in this business? And I've shown like traveling and being having FaceTime with people there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
That's why like this whole COVID thing kind of scares me a little bit with the Zoom calls and like whatever, because FaceTime means so much more. If you're going for a big meeting, it's going to make more impression to walk in somewhere, right?
Right.
Than it is like getting on a phone. Think about like with Fit Butters, right? You're calling a place. Hey, I want to get in what if you walk in that location with a product?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to send you a sample. Check this out. What if you walked in, especially Jay Cutler, right? If I walk into a place, like people are going to be like, oh my goodness. Yeah, for sure. It's harder for them to say no. Right. And then, let the product do the talking after that. But I think, that was my fear, and I continue to strive to be better and kind of put myself out there and try to mentor people and, try to be a positive role model. I think that's the most important thing. I'm a success story in bodybuilding. Doesn't have to all be negativity. And as you know, there's a lot of negativity. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how I've kind of dictated how I've done things.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, like, the trophies are great. But I think the stuff that you do outside the victories kind of builds you up as a person. I use Kai Green as an example. Like, he didn't win a single Olympia, but if he went to an event, his line would be around the block. He has built himself up through person. But him and Phil had like that really intense rivalry, which is good. They both injected personality in what was going on. And even though Kai never won Olympia, he can still be super successful in life because he built up the persona of Kai Green and who he is, that people will always remember him, whether it's the look, the hair, the body, how he speaks so like artistically, and he's a different cat. I love Kai. He's a different cat. I'm trying to have a conversation with him, but I mean, that's who he is, and that's what people remember. So it's not like you have to win titles. Titles are great, 100%. But if you can do the other things too that go along with it, I think you can be successful, post your bodybuilding career too.
Absolutely.
Strength isn't a slogan.
You want to win this year? Yes, no! What time is it? Game time! What time is it? Game time!
It's not an image you find on billboards or the big screen. It's never been about any of that. It's all around you, in everyday moments, just waiting to be unleashed. Strength is the knowledge that inside you lies anything you've ever wanted to be. The confidence that your failures never define you. And the passion and purpose to drive beyond any limits placed upon you. When you call upon it, strength embraces you, challenges you, pulls you back up, no matter how many times you fall. It compels you to draw on courage, resilience, intensity, and hope, and expects your very best to help others find theirs. True strength demands you build more than muscle. Not in pursuit of a personal best, but a better tomorrow for everyone.
Adding my product is going to help you get to where you want to be.
5%ers is 5% of the people in the world that are willing to do whatever it takes to reach their goals. We're talking about business, success, education, willing to do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
For the last 2 decades, we have been the best kept secret of the supplement industry. We've kept our heads down and worked. We pioneered full label transparency and full therapeutic doses because we believe that truly hard work requires truly effective tools. 2 decades is a long time to commit to one pursuit, but when you act with purpose and become centered in yourself, eventually you realize that you were born and bred for this. The things you once thought impossible, you now do every day. We don't like the easy way, it just doesn't feel right. We'll take the long, hard road over a shortcut any day. It takes longer, sure, but in the end, you know you earned it. And with the right team behind you, pushing yourself further than you've ever been would be just another afternoon doing what you love most.
Cutler Nutrition, how's it doing?
Doing very well. I mean, I'm mostly, my model's direct to consumer. I am getting in some retail locations that have got behind the brand, but way ahead of what I ever expected it to do would be on year 2 come February of 21. We actually launched February 1st in 19. So it's been great. I mean, it's obviously a big change from what I've done in the past. A lot of new product formulation. Exciting. I mean, it's exciting. It's just another benchmark of what I'm trying to do to solidify myself in the business. I'm bringing on some influencers and athletes, and big expansion for 21 for sure. I expect a big increase, but during COVID, I still grew tremendously, and I'm very happy with the outcome so far. A lot of great feedback. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've been touting it too. A lot of people ask, it's like, we talked about this on the first podcast, but like big name bodybuilder attaches his name to a supplement line. Generally, it's not great. In your case, that's not the case. It's awesome. I mean, it prevails it's still, in my opinion, like one of the best pre-workouts in the market, because it's not just like, and I love your ads on Facebook. I'm not sure if you help with them, but it's like, hey, if you're looking for a caffeine-laden pre-workout with 500 milligrams, this isn't for you. Like, it's great. I mean, you cut to the choice, like, what is it, 250 milligrams? It's very low, like, in terms of low. I say low because nowadays it's like you have to have 400 plus, but it works well. I think maybe we talked about this in the podcast one, but people didn't watch that. Like, how hands-on were you in the formulation process of that?
I was, obviously I'm not a total detail formulator, so I've had some help on ingredients and I'm actually testing some new stuff now, but it's really hard, honestly, not to launch a pre-workout that's just like, that's just totally crazy, because you still have those certain people that like, oh man, I need to feel more, right? Mm-hmm. But they haven't really grasped the whole nootropics, like, the good feel and the safe. I mean, that's the thing at 47, like I'm looking at, okay, I want to create a product that's, that's it really had, you can really get great benefit from, but it's not going to hinder your health to that aspect, right? That's people's biggest concern is like, okay, can I take this long term, right? So for me, I tested every product. I've looked at every ingredient pretty much. I'm always looking for an edge, and I'm first to jump on some of the newer. I'm looking to do like a crazy pump product right now. I want to go deeper than what Amplify gives. So, and I'm looking for different ways to get that. So it's not just, I know everyone has their powdered version, or, some people take, still use a capsule or whatever else, but there's different ways, I think, for people to take their pre-workouts or their intra-workouts or whatever. So I'm always trying to find the advantage, but flavor is great. The price has to be right. And obviously you have to feel certain things. So surprisingly enough, my number one product sale is my Triumph Test Booster, which is very, very good. I push this to obviously the men's side, but a lot of women actually use the product too. And it's very safe. I mean, it's surprisingly been, a big seller for me alongside the pre-workouts and, even the stim-free pre-workouts. I mean, it's a big push, but the protein's done really well for me too. I mean, I've used this cereal flavor, kind of promotion thing, and you've seen the ads on Facebook I do with feeding it to the dogs and whatever. Right. I kind of use these funny commercials and putting these little skits together. So it's really helped a lot. And, that's our main advertisement is through the media channels. And, it's not just strictly for bodybuilders, but we have a pretty general audience, which is exciting.
You mentioned being specific about brick and mortar that you're going into. I think one's Paul Callahan, Bullfrog Nutrition. We're both in that store, and Paul's a big advocate for the sport. But like, what's the criteria for you in terms of like, because a lot of these, I'm sure you get hit up all the time. Like, Jay, we want to carry your stuff, and I've actually reached out to you because I've had brands reach out to me in retail locations. But you hold that pretty close because you want to be in the correct spots.
Price integrity, so meaning I don't let people sell online or on Amazon. We're the only ones really selling on those two different channels, obviously eBay too, but we try to just protect the price. And I want to get the understanding of, when a store is selling pro hormones or SARMs or whatever else, it's not what I'm looking for. I'd want people to educate their clients on what kind of ingredients are in their products, right? Because there's so many. Listen, I'm not going to sit there and tell people, oh, this is the best pre-workout. There's so many competitive pre-workouts. And as you know, there's brands out there launching new stuff every week. But I want, there's great benefits to it. And if you have some brand integrity and you believe in the products, I believe that, if it fits your pocket, this is the ultimate brand. Mm-hmm. But you have to educate the people. You can't just, people come in and they buy like, the C4s or whatever else because they've seen it advertised for years. There's much more advancement on certain products as progression goes on. So for me, I just try to educate people. Hey, this is what's in the product. Paul's given me a lot of great leads. He's a great guy, Bullfrog. So anyone he recommends usually has pretty good, they have integrity with the brands. But to be honest, like I said, I'm mostly a direct brand. I'm not really pushing stores necessarily because I just know there's just a lot of people going in those stores that are kind of they have a mindset of what they're going to buy when they go in there. But I got to get it in more people's hands. That's the goal. And customer acquisition is like the key, right?
Right. I find it interesting, or I always wonder, when you're a professional bodybuilder, and you're always a professional bodybuilder, but when you're actively competing, you have contractual obligations with brands that you sign, obviously to use their products. And a lot of times people will give pushback to professional athletes, like why are they teaming with this brand when this brand doesn't come out with stuff. I think what people need to understand too is like, there's not a lot of money in bodybuilding unless you're like top 5 in the world. You got to make a living still. But, back then when you were with some of these other brands and taking their products versus now, like how much more are you educated as somebody that's a brand owner, or were you always educated, but you just kind of had to suck it up and take some stuff because, that was your sort of your obligation as a employee, I guess, or representative?
I can sit here and tell you with all the brands, I started with Weider. I was with ISS, who was basically, oh yeah.
Yep.
I went with Muscle Tech for 8 years. And then, of course, I started launching my own stuff, whether it was, an affiliation with other brands. I kind of had an idea. The thing that I've learned the most now is obviously production cost of goods that go into product, what's legal and what's not illegal, right? And, obviously the aspect of, okay, how do people approach buying products and, what turns people on to a brand. I knew, I was educated on the weeder side. I was educated through ISS, and I was educated tremendously through Muscle Tech. And I want to specifically point out Muscle Tech because they would fly me up there, and they would literally, the same thing you see on my media where I get, basically plain bottles from my manufacturer.
Right.
I did the same thing with Muscle Tech, and each athlete would have a product that they were kind of like the highlighted athlete for that product. So like, for example, when they launched Pump Tech, I don't know if you remember this product, like I tested that product. It was basically NO2, pre-workout pump product, right? So I tested it and I used it, and they said, okay, we want the feedback. So they'd literally fly me up there. I'd sit with Paul and all the and people that were kind of formulating the products, and they'd say, what is your opinion? What could be better? What could, and the only complaint I ever had was they were red pills, and you would eat the red pills and your teeth would be like all red after, but they worked. And, I kind of went through that whole thing. I mean, they were just a top-notch company. And that allowed me to learn a lot, not only as an athlete, but, in that side of the formulation side. Although I didn't know, like I said, the cost and the materials to get these products out there and how much it costs to actually advertise and launch these products, where to launch them. Definitely this direct-to-consumer model has been the whole focus when I launched the brand. And I've learned so much about that through trial and error, right? For sure. And that's where I've kind of learned the most. But the ingredients from 10 years ago are so different.
Yeah, you're right.
So different. I mean, I took straight creatine 10 years ago. I was using alpha-lipoic acid. I was using straight products, right? So I like that some of these things are still available, and people still tell me, I mean, it's like, this whole carb culture. Like they went through, all the Vitargos and the Waxy Maize, and, like I have a carb cluster in my repair product, but like I used to go to Costco and buy the powdered Gatorade, and just dextrose. I mean, that's what Cell Tech was. And I was a huge Cell Tech advocate back in the Muscle Tech days, and add some creatine to that, you put on 10 pounds like nothing.
Yeah, right? No, my brother did that. Yeah, that was my first sort of introduction to the supplement world. But no, it's great. And I know the people at Iovate still talk fondly of you. The ones that are still there, that when you're around them, they always say, hey, tell Jay I said hi and stuff. So, and they still have that focus on, I don't know what your relations are with them now, but they still want to be, do things the right way, especially the way they're going now, which is refreshing to have a big brand, like that do that. So as we wrap in the show here, I got to get, obviously we got to get to the predictions. We are, 4 weeks away, something like that, as this podcast from the Olympia. Who you got and why?
Damn, you didn't send me the list.
Well, I mean, do you need the list? You know who you're picking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say, based on who I think is showing up today, and that can change. I know because like Brandeo's out now, James Hollingsworth is out. He's out now. Cedric is out, right?
Is he?
They thought they announced that all these guys are out now. So, yeah. I mean, the James would have been in the top 10 for sure. I mean, he missed an opportunity there, but top guys, I would say definitely. I'm going to pick Phil Heath to win.
Yep.
I'm going to pick Brandon in second, between Bonnick and him. Hadi Chupin's going to be in there. Dexter Jackson. I would say Rami or Rowley finish around that place, but I think your top three is going to be Bonnick, Heath, and Brandon Curry.
Yeah, I think
in no particular order.
I Dexter might slip in there. Depends on. I haven't seen him lately, but yeah, it's very.
And Chupin could be in there too. I'm not going to discount him, although I don't know if he's. I mean, he's a question mark. I think he's going to get there.
I don't know the travel restrictions at all at this point.
So last year, Brandon, Bonnick, and Chupin were, and then Dexter was fourth, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think.
But
I think Rolly was 5th. So we have Rami in there this year, so he's going to be there somewhere. But I think Dexter's, shoot, he could be 5th to 1st.
Yeah, it really could be. I guess any of those guys you mentioned probably could be. Like I have Phil winning too, just because I feel like 2 years off is going to be, so he's going to come back saying, well, this is my title. He'll get.
And I hate to say that because I love Brandon's like awesome, and he's I don't think people are really discrediting him. I think it's just people aren't acknowledging him as much because he's fairly new to like the elite class, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bonnick's been knocking at the door now for a couple years, where Curry was 5th prior to winning.
Sure.
So I think, and there's been these guys that stole the thunder. I think the most disrespected guy is Bonnick. Because Bonnick, I mean, you got to look at his track record the last 3 years. I mean, he's been, 3rd, 2nd, Arnold winning, 2nd last year at the Olympia. Like, why is no one talking about William Bonnick as a potential guy to knock at that door? He could be 2nd in this show.
Yeah, for sure.
Can he win?
We'll see.
I don't know, man. Prove me wrong and win the show, but I think he could be close. He definitely got a great package. I just feel Heath is he's got something to prove, and I've been there. I've lost the title. I've come back and win it, and I think Phil's going to be the 2nd man in history to do it.
Let's end the podcast with advice to the young bodybuilders, men and women, who might be on a regional level seeking their pro card, because a lot of them want to know, like, what advice, because you were there in their shoes once. What advice do you give to the young athletes out there?
You know what? I'm not going to give competitive advice because I feel like everything is time and everything is, figuring out what works best for your body. And some people may find that formula, they may never. But the truth be told is you need to build your brand, because you can be very successful in this business. You can be successful in the ways that people view success, whether it's on stage, off stage. You just got to treat people with respect. You need to be confident, but not arrogant. But more importantly, you need to put your content out there. Create right now, a website with your name, do your YouTube channel, do all social platforms, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, have all that stuff. So when your career, I always tell these people, put a YouTube video, train your chest on your YouTube video, okay? Whether it's male, female, you might get 2 views, but you know what? In 10 years, when you're become a huge name, someone's going to go back and watch that video. That's what's great. The YouTube is like the best channel, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't disappear in your feed. We can post things on Instagram, and 50 pictures later, no one ever sees it. Correct. Right? Because it's no one's scrolling through unless they're checking someone out. YouTube is like you type in those keywords and what do you got? It pops up. There it is. And, it's forever, right? I got videos on there from 2008. People say, I watch your video. The most common thing people tell me at these events is, I was just watching a video before I went to the gym, or before I came here and you were eating chicken breast, or you were working out. And like, people want to watch, okay, I'm going to do chest. Let's type in YouTube. It's free, right?
Yep.
Let's watch Jay do chest, and that's how they're going to get the tips for their workout that they're going to go do in 10 or 15 minutes. So just put your content out, follow the people you like pictures, comment, tag people like myself. So we go along, and I spend a minute each night going through my Instagram feed and liking and commenting on pictures. I try to do at least 20 comments, because I feel like if people are going to tag me and post pictures that are relative to me, I'm going to give them the respect, even if they have 3 followers. I try to give everyone notoriety no matter what. I'm like a person that tries to put people on. That's what my YouTube channel is all about, creating a platform for the people that don't have the following. So, just make sure you correspond and do your media stuff.
Love it. I mean, yeah, I love that's the advice that you gave, because you're absolutely right.
You're a prime example. I remember when you started.
Yeah.
And your Instagram had like nobody, right?
Nobody. Yeah, I wasn't nobody. Still am a nobody, but I kept putting content out there, and then I tried my hand at some bodybuilding stuff for a little bit, got a little bit bigger, and then here we are. So,
but I'm sure you watched it and you were like, man, I just need more likes, or I need more comments, and that you've seen the thing grow, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, just don't let it overtake your life, right? Don't become infatuated with likes. But at the same time, you can't get likes if you don't put the content out there in the first place. So, dude, I appreciate it. A year ago, you gave a happy birthday message to my now fiance. We're married in a couple weeks, so she cannot wait to find the action.